Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix on women's MMA. We've got you covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel DeLeon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you're doing fine for yourself during a time of major uncertainty. Man, things are so uncertain right now, I can't even say uncertainty. That's how uncertain it is. Letting you know, I am doing this podcast from Los Angeles. I've been absent last week for doing a podcast episode due to me moving in. You know, Dodgers won a championship, Lakers won a championship, so I take pride knowing that I am in the city of champions, LA. Yay! People hate us, but we really love our own city. At times, sometimes. But today I'll be talking about women's mixed martial arts, obviously, GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. But, you know what, I'll be talking about these fights here. Today's fights were kind of weird, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll be discussing the UFC Fight Night event, which was headlined by Rafael dos Anjos versus Paul Felder. Felder was a replacement fighter for Islam Makhachev. And in this UFC Fight Night event, there were 5 fights that were unsure of even happening just 1 week ago. We had 3 fights that were canceled because we had 3 fights that involve 6 fighters canceling out due to health issues. We had 1 fighter who had 1 week prep in the fight against some other fighter because his initial fight was canceled. We have Paul Felder replacing the main event. So this card was full of a lot of nonsense and things going up and down. Things were just not consistent for this Fight Night card. But one thing that was consistent though was that this UFC Fight Night card was full of a lot of fun action. So first I'll be talking about not the co-main event here, but the fight right before the co-main event, which is Ashley Yoder versus Miranda Granger. So I put down in the notes here, it is a fight with a web of locks and ground grappling, because this fight right here, oh my goodness. So if you were to show somebody Ashley Yoder versus Miranda Granger, I can guarantee you their reaction was, wait a minute, what are they doing? Like, I don't get it. I just can't comprehend what's going on here. Because the truth is that even the commentary team couldn't even comprehend what was really even happening in this fight. Now, what I'm saying is that for this 3-round fight here, you had these 2 women grappling each other, and upon grappling, going through a whole lot of reversals, going to the ground and stuff, strange, awkward judo tosses and takedown attempts. It was a very clunky fight. Not the most prettiest fight to see. It's not like, oh wow, double leg takedown, wow, good takedown there, working from half guard, moves over to side position to mount position, good work there, moving to a Darce choke, yay. No. It wasn't that kind of fight. Instead, it was Ashley Yoder gets in for a takedown. Now Miranda Granger is going for a key lock, while Yoder is simultaneously going for an armbar somehow, and now Yoder's leg is behind the back of the neck of Granger, while Granger is now elbowing the elbow of Yoder. It was just such a clunky looking fight. It was certainly unique. I say it was the most unique and different fights in the entire UFC fight card. Because at one point in the fights, like Michael Bisping, I think and so John Anik were commentating this fight. And when they were commentating it, they were like, yep, Ashley Yoder there attempting a submission hold, I think. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of things happening, and I don't know what to, process here. Even the commentary team, they're flabbergasted. Watching this fight, though, I was kind of on it, though. But, you know what? It was interesting. It was a fun, weird, quirky fight here. So, Ashley Yoder here I didn't even so Miranda Granger ended up winning this fight, but even I myself can't even tell you or explain to you how this. No. Ashley Yoder ended up winning this fight against Granger. I wasn't really sure what Granger's strategy was, and Ashley Yoder just picked it up in the third round. But here we go. First round, Ashley Yoder goes in, takedown onto Miranda Granger, and so in the span of 4 out of the 5 minutes, the first 1 minute of the fight involved the two women just scrapping it out, fighting each other, fighting into the pocket through 50-50 exchanges. And then when they got to the ground, it was Ashley Yoder grappling with Granger, but she really wasn't doing much. I put down my notes here that Yoder, when she's grappling, is attempting submission holds, but isn't doing anything that would put Granger in danger. Granger in danger, I guess that. The two grappling stems more of Granger battling her way out than Yoder actually controlling the fight here. And while I'm talking about this, I might as well discuss, my viewpoints on whether or not who actually is winning in the ground exchanges here. There is a fighter who currently competes in the flyweight division, the men's flyweight division, and his name is Miranda Granger. And Miranda Granger encapsulates this perfectly in the sense that all because you're getting a takedown in and you are on top for a certain amount of time doesn't necessarily mean you should be winning or you should be automatically be given the points for, getting a takedown and being on top and doing a little bit of work, because I don't really think so. I don't believe that's the case. In this scenario here, we have Miranda Granger, who, although was taken down, was doing most of the work. Just imagine that. Miranda Granger gets taken down. Miranda Granger is the one working Ashley Yoder here, and it's not because Miranda Granger has a great or stellar jiu-jitsu game. It's more of a sense that Ashley Yoder gets takedown, moves into half guard position, and then she's stuck at half guard. It was a weird scenario in that even the referee, 15 seconds onto them getting to the ground, was like, come on, do some action here. And it's because Ashley Yoder, she digs her own head onto the armpits of Granger, and then Yoder is doing little to no ground and pound. She's attempting a submission hold, she's attempting an armbar or a Kimura, but Granger ain't giving it because Yoder is in no position to actually pull off a submission victory. Meanwhile, Granger, she's the one moving, she's squirming about, she's throwing in these vicious elbows from bottom position. And just like the Bisping GSP fight, I am a firm believer that if you are the one who is giving up the damage, whether you are on top position or in bottom position, if you're the one pulling damage and it is evident that your opponent has to adjust to you, then the person on top isn't automatically given the right to be the person who should be given points based on ground control. That's not how it works. It isn't. This also reminded me of Yan Xiaonan versus Claudia Gadelha. In the first round, Claudia Gadelha was grappling and wrestling with Yan, but through the eye test and even through the judges, you could easily be like, all right, Yan was winning that first round, even though she had her back on the canvas majority of that round. You know why? Because Claudia Gadelha and Ashley Yoder approach the same thing here, takedown, but you're not really working towards anything from the takedown. So the person from bottom, they're not enduring any damage. So why would the judges be like, oh wow, she's being controlled on the ground, when she really isn't? She really isn't. She's not even, here's the thing, Yoder isn't even pressuring all her weight in or putting all her weight in on Miranda Granger so she gets tired out. That's not what's even happening here. Granger immediately flips over and then gets superior positioning onto Ashley Yoder on side position, and unlike Yoder, Granger hits some ground and pound action. So first round goes to Miranda Granger. Stand-up game, not judging the stand-up aspect of this fight for first, second, third round, not even worth it. It really isn't, because the large majority of this fight and who you are going to be the one saying, oh, this person won or that person won, stems from their work from the ground. They barely fought standing up, so I'm judging them primarily on their performance on the ground. And Ashley Yoder did jack anything when she was able to take down Granger. Then, look at the second round here. I put down here, Yoder does a lot more better in the second round off the basis that she had 2 minutes more in the second round of ground control compared to Granger. Granger, I think, had 2 minutes and 15 seconds of ground control. This even led to, which in the second round, Granger ended up having, I think, 13 seconds of ground control compared to Yoder, who had 2 minutes and 31 seconds. So yeah, Yoder had superior ground control, and unlike the first round, where it was, okay, Yoder gets a takedown, then Granger immediately flips over. It's more of a sense like Yoder gets a takedown, and Yoder keeps Granger on the ground. Now, she's not pulling off any hard shots from top. She's not doing some harsh ground and pound. Granger was, that's how I viewed it, was not in any danger. She really wasn't. But Granger, unlike the first round, couldn't reverse out. She wasn't pulling off that much damage or little to any damage at all from bottom position. So by default, you then give it to Ashley Yoder. I don't have enough confidence points in me to put the second round on Yoder. It was less of a sense of Yoder dominating the fight and controlling her opponent, and more of Miranda Granger just slowing down and getting tired. And then we go to the third round here. That tiredness got to Granger in the third round because she was a lot less explosive. She was a lot less active in the ground when she was taken down. Even in the striking, she was backpedaling for the most part in the 1 minute of striking they even did back in the first round. So Yoder goes work with ground and pound action. And Michael Bisping was kind of making fun of Ashley Yoder for this, because he was like, "Oh man, Yoder, she gets a takedown, good on her, but she's not really doing anything." Then third round happens, and then Yoder went from digging her head in her opponent's armpits at full guard or half guard position to full on laying in some ground and pound action, pummeling Granger from top, doing a really good job, essentially forcing Granger's body onto the cage. And so she just pressuring Granger onto the cage, making it kind of a little bit more difficult for Granger to be able to reverse out like she did back in the first round. And so you see Yoder. She's doing some ground and pound. She's working on Granger for about 4 out of the 5 minutes into the first round. And here's the thing: Yoder was able to cut up Granger in that final minute. That final minute of that third round really showed that Yoder was the one who was going to win this fight. Yoder does some more ground and pound in the final minutes. She actually is able to get a rear naked choke. She cinches in a rear naked choke in the final, I say, 7 seconds of the third round. She cinches in a rear naked choke, and I praise Miranda Granger, man. I praise her. It is cinched in. And in the final 3 seconds, she gets choked. She doesn't tap out. Good on for Miranda Granger, but Ashley Yoder ends up winning this fight by unanimous decision. She didn't do anything in the first round, so obviously Granger won, but she was able to pull back, get the comeback victory in the second and third round. Good performance there by Miranda Granger. Even though Ashley Yoder won the fights, I think I saw it in her post-fight press conference interview where she said she felt kind of disappointed in the fights, in that she didn't really do her best out there. And here's the thing, she didn't really pick up on, here's the thing, the second round, although Yoder won that, if you were to compare the version of Ashley Yoder in the second round and third round, two entirely different fighters here. Because I felt for the most part here, other than that third round, Ashley Yoder was incredibly passive. She was incredibly passive. Ashley Yoder said in the interview that she felt disappointed in her performance. She didn't do what exactly she wanted to. I think Ashley Yoder wanted to win this fight early on through a submission victory. That's why in the first round, she did no ground and pound. Second round did no ground and pound. Third round, she's like, okay, there's no way I can win this fight by submission. I'm going to just pummel my opponent here. I think she wanted that submission victory. Sadly, it didn't went well for her. Ashley Yoder, she wasn't able to get the submission victory, though she was able to win. She defeated Miranda Granger. She got her pay bonus for her win pay bonus. She didn't get the submission of the night bonus, which I think is something that she really wanted. But you know what? A strong performance by both women there. I can't wait. Ashley Yoder has a lot. Ashley Yoder is a proper veteran of MMA, actually. But she has a lot to go over on her next fight camp here. And if she really wants to excel and become a much more better fighter, she has to be committed. No, she has to be more of a dynamic fighter, and that once she gets her opponent to the ground, she can be able to adjust. She's not going to go and have pure tunnel vision and just go for one winning condition victory in the fight, because there are multiple winning conditions in MMA fights, but in this scenario here, Ashley Yoder had only one up until that third round. And so you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast, and come back after a short break here. I'll be discussing Kay Hansen versus Corey Mckenna.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. Once again, you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast. And the fight I'll be discussing right here, wow, just wow, in my opinion, was the best fight for UFC Fight Nights. Anjos versus Felder. This is my fight of the night, and it involved two of the youngest fighters currently right now in the UFC fighting one another. We had 21-year-old Kay Hansen against 21-year-old Corey Mckenna. So right before this fight even happened, we had the fight team discussing, is this the youngest fight between two fighters ever in UFC history? And it was like a couple years, it was like just a couple months older than when Robert Lawler fought against Nate Diaz like many years ago. And so we had Hansen and Corey Mckenna here. And interesting info here about Kay Hansen here, which I didn't know about, was that Kay Hansen, apparently she was part of the varsity team, was a junior in high school playing for a varsity team at Fullerton, and it turns out that she was inspired to be an MMA fighter after watching a Ronda Rousey fight. She was looking online, she saw a Ronda Rousey fight, she was inspired by it, and interestingly enough, she apparently was already getting offers to go to Harvard. She was getting a scholarship opportunity to go to Harvard. And I thought to myself, well, okay, and according to Kay Hansen, she's like, you know what, college is kind of a scam, I don't need it, man, I can do MMA, that's my true passion in life. And I'm just like, wow, you seriously gave the opportunity to go to Harvard. Now, I do know that I'm of two minds about college still, just because there are a lot of success stories out there where people do not go to college, or they graduate high school and end up going to a trade school, and they're becoming super from that. One of my friends, he graduated from high school, then went to community college, did 2 years of it, then really hated it, then just went to a trade school, and is now an entrepreneur who owns his own business, super successful right now, makes a lot of money, and he himself is like, yeah man, college, man, it's a big scam. But here's the thing, I studied in the Northern California area, which pertains to Silicon Valley. I studied at Berkeley. Yeah, look at me at UCB, man. I'm a smart kid. But I also studied at SFSU. So I studied at a Cal State school and at a UC school. And where I worked, because there's a lot of computer engineers. I'd say right now, Seattle and San Francisco are the two big cities where, if you are a computer, or if you're a computer engineer, or you have a computer science degree, you can go to those two cities and you can make bank. You really can. I got one friend right now Even though he went to Fresno State University, he now accumulates $350,000 per year working for Google right now. So, I can safely say right now that college is a scam unless you are majoring in a field that you know will give you good financial success. Alright then, for instance, I studied in broadcast journalism, and up until COVID, I was doing really well for myself. Darn you, COVID, darn you. Once COVID, gets... Whatever. It's weird. I agree with Dana White in that people who work in the media, they struggle due to COVID being a huge issue. I'm one of them. But, you know what? I'll get back on my feet after a little COVID thing, gets over. But for Kay Hansen, though, she felt like she didn't need Harvard. You know what? Maybe she wasn't really interested in being like a doctor or a computer engineer or something like that. Maybe she just wanted to be an MMA fighter. She's only 21 years old. She also has a whole lot of experience already. She fought against Jinyu Frey in her UFC debut, and she was able to defeat Jinyu Frey, who, by the way, was the Invicta FC Atomweight champion. She defeated the Atomweight champion for Invicta on her UFC debut after just having 5 to 7 days notice of the fight. And from this showing here with Hanson against Corey Mckenna here, it's obvious that things are going, because she's fighting at strawweight. The strike division and the fight division has a whole lot of potential, a whole lot of them, and I'm excited to talk about this fight. So first off, Hanson, Corey Mckenna, even striking, both sides. It's hard to tell who actually is winning in any of these exchanges. Hard to tell. Hanson is a bit stronger in the clinch. Hanson does get a takedown and gets on the back of Mckenna, but really doesn't do anything in the end of the round. There's a scenario here, I think it was at the final 17 seconds. So the final 17 seconds, Hanson is on the back of Mckenna, and immediately, of course, you're thinking like, oh, easy. She's going to attempt a rear naked choke. And the way how her arms were positioned, she was not going to defend the rear naked choke if Hanson would attempt it. But Hanson didn't really do anything. It's just like she got on the backpack position of Corey Mckenna. The commentary team were surprised. They were like, wait a minute, why isn't Hanson just doing anything? And so in the final 17 seconds, she's on the back of Mckenna. Mckenna is like throwing out these like very insignificant strikes from the backpack position. I give the first round to Hanson due to her landing a lot more significant strikes. And also, she did a lot more better in the clinching. So, although it was, in my opinion, 50-50 in the 50-50 exchanges between these two fighters, Hanson just edges out Corey Mckenna just a little bit due to her being the one who's obviously winning in the clinching battle. And then we go to the second round here. We have even striking yet again from both sides. Hanson gets a takedown in, then gets on backpack position yet again. And I'm thinking, alright, so you should do something this time, right? Because you really didn't do much in the first round when you're in backpack position. And this time, Hanson tries to actually go for a rear naked choke, but she struggles, then attempts an armbar, and Mckenna reverses and starts working Hanson from guard position. Good job there by Corey Mckenna here. If you're being able to get out of backpack position from your opponent, darn impressive there. So I put here second round goes to Mckenna. Because although Hanson was the one who brought the fight to the ground, Hanson did not really control the fight through her clinch work. She did little to no clinching in this second round here. And also she put herself in a bad position on Corey Mckenna. And Corey Mckenna, for the large majority of the second round, was the one who had superior ground control. So first round goes to Kay Hansen. Second round goes to Corey Mckenna. It's dead even going into the third round. So third round, Mckenna is landing accurate counter left jabs and nullify Hanson's offense. There's a period, I think there's like a 2-minute period in the first 2 minutes of the third round here, where Kay Hansen just was super struggling trying to find those clear shots. Like she would attempt a body kick, and then like Mckenna would go and counter immediately with a left hook, or Kay Hansen wants to go and shoot in for a clinch, but she gets tagged immediately. So Kay Hansen became very hesitant in that third round into trying to figure out, like, okay, like, how much to get in there without really doing some damage. So Mckenna's landing these, like, super accurate left jabs. Both fighters then begin to trade shots. It's about even level striking here. Hanson gets a second takedown in Mckenna, getting in heavy... Hanson gets a second takedown in. Mckenna starts landing heavy elbows from bottom, then attempts a Kimura. More fighters should do this. More fighters should actually try to give some damage to their opponent from bottom. Whenever I watch MMA, my dad always comes in, and then when he sees one fighter get taken down, he immediately starts like elbowing the air and pushing the air. And my dad's like, "Hey, why are they not doing anything from bottom? Like, they're not doing anything. They're like a fish." And I agree with them. They are like a fish. Now, understand the reason why you see a lot of fighters be very passive and not work at all or exhaust themselves from bottom position is because they're trying to save themselves up for the other rounds. I get it. But if you're going to a round and you're unsure whether or not you're even winning that round in the first place, why not at least attempt to get some strikes in from bottom? Because if you were to lay in these sharp elbow strikes from bottom, you're going to disorient your opponent. You're going to disorient your opponent, and your opponent is going to struggle mightily. And then when you get to the second round, they're still kind of disoriented, and then you get to get some advantage from it. There has to be more fighters who do this. Thank you, Corey Mckenna, for actually working, for actually doing some work, and isn't just there like a fish, like Tyron Woodley, when he gets taken down. He gets taken down, and he just doesn't really do anything. So I respect Mckenna for doing that, running some heavy elbows. So Hanson is busted open at this point here. Then attempts a head and arm choke, but Mckenna gets out. Hanson gets on mount, then Mckenna reverses and gets to half guard. Mckenna starts throwing in some more elbows yet again. Stats show that Hanson had more control time over Mckenna, but I gave the round to Corey Mckenna. So Corey Mckenna ends up winning the fight by unanimous decision. It was easily the fight of the night for UFC Fight Night, Dos Anjos versus Paul Felder here. And now let me talk about Kay Hanson's Instagram post, because she released a statement on her Instagram where she did the usual stuff. She's saying, like, I thank God, I thank my family, I thank, my trainers out there and friends, I thank my corner crew for, I think the UFC and Dana White for giving me the opportunity to go out there and do my best and support that I love, yada yada, blah blah. But one interesting note though was at the very end of that post, she said that she believed she won the first and third round. Second round, everyone agrees. Corey Mckenna won. She won the second round. First round, yes. I say Hanson won the first round. Now going into that third round, I'm guessing the judges scored it the same way. Mckenna won second, Hanson won first. So going to the third round here, considering that Mckenna won by unanimous decision, that meant that all three judges scored it pretty much the exact same way from first, second, and third round. Did Kay Hanson win the third round? No. And I understand her logic behind why she believes she won the third round. And it's because she was on top position for the majority of the time in the third round here. And like I said before, earlier in the podcast here, I absolutely do not think that a fighter should be given a round or be given accoladed ground control time if they're in top position, but they're not working towards anything. Because these two fighters here, Mckenna, she was the one working it. Yes, Hanson, she got onto backpack position and attempted a choke, but Mckenna was able to defend it and it was able to flip over and get superior position. And in the third round, yes, Kay Hanson, she was on top of Mckenna. Yes, she was the one who was who was dictating the fight. Yes, she is the one who got the takedown in. But is she actually doing anything? Is she putting Mckenna in any danger of potentially either tapping out to a submission hold or being pummeled in the face through ground and pound work? I'm asking that right now. And the truth here is that although Hanson did get more ground control time than Mckenna. All because you get ground control time doesn't mean you should win that round if you're not really working towards anything or putting your opponent in any danger. It's like, okay, so if any of you guys remember the GSP Michael Bisping fight, in that GSP got the takedown onto Michael Bisping, but then Michael Bisping from bottom position is the one wrecking GSP from bottom with sharp elbows. And it would be ridiculous to say, oh man, the person from top is obviously winning this fight, even though he's the one who's bleeding, who's obviously tired, who's obviously being dazed, who's obviously, at the brink of being concussed. In this scenario for Kay Hansen and Corey Mckenna, yes, Hansen got the takedown, but she was not doing any ground and pound. She wasn't doing that much ground and pounding. None of her submission holds really were ever successful. And according to Michael Bisping, was like, oh man, Hansen here attempting submission moves here, and she's not in good position to pull off any of them. So yeah, first round, Hansen, yes. Third round, I don't give it to her. I don't give it to her. Fighters need to realize that once you take a person down, or once you're clinching with them onto the cage, you gotta put in the work. Alright then? You gotta put in the work. You gotta do a lot more than just get a takedown in order to secure the victory. Especially for two young prospects like Mckenna and Hansen. I thought Hansen was a little bit too passive in her groundwork. And so coming up after the short break here, I'll be discussing the prelim main event for the UFC Fight Night event, which was Randa Markos versus Kanako Murata. Coming back after the short break here, see you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. And so while I discussed two young prospects here, we got another prospect coming in, and that's Kanako Murata fighting against UFC veteran Randa Markos. So Murata's making her debut after winning the Invicta FC strawweight title. And as we all know, the strawweight division for the UFC is probably the most deepest division in all of UFC. I'll be honest with you, it's to me my favorite division. So Murata gets a takedown 1 minute into it and gets to half guard. Murata goes to work from side position, but Markos gets up. Murata's relentless in her takedowns. Murata hits a couple hard shots from top in the final 30 seconds. Markos attempts a heel hook, but doesn't get it. Murata wins first round due to ground control for 4 minutes. And pretty much for the entirety of the fight here, it was all Murata. It really was. Murata is the one chasing Markos despite the significant size advantage that Markos has. Murata shoots in and gets a takedown 3 minutes in. Second round obviously goes for Murata. Murata goes in for a kick, then level changes to a double leg takedown. She even lifts her up in the air. Thing with Murata is that there was such a huge difference in terms of size and stature between Markos and Murata that I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, why is it that Murata is having such an easy time grappling with the much more bigger fighter, the much more lankier fighter, in Markos? Markos had a very tight base, a very closed-in tight base, where she's kind of like bending her back a little bit down. She's kind of crunching herself. And that's because Markos, being a much bigger fighter, she's like, okay, I know my opponent here, she wants to grapple and wrestle with me, so I'm going to crunch down here in order to be more prepared for the takedowns. And it didn't help her out at all. It didn't. I thought Markos here, I thought she was very, very passive. I thought to myself that Markos should have utilized the jab, should have thrown in a little bit more leg kicks, threw in some push kicks, because it was way too easy for Murata to just go dive in there, because multiple times in this fight, Murata would dive in there and Markos would just backpedal and not even go for some strikes as Murata is going in towards her. I didn't get it. Murata goes for a leg kick and overshoots for a double leg takedown. Murata, despite her small stature, carries, like she lifts Markos up in the air and goes for a kind of power slam. Murata tries for a Darce choke, then moves towards a north-south choke. Markos defends it as Murata starts working from full guard. Murata's landing some vicious ground and pound action. Markos lands an up kick that would have knocked out Murata, but Murata powers through it by landing elbows from half guard. Markos attempts an armbar, but it's a little too late. Murata wins the fight by unanimous decision. Murata wins in pretty much every category. There's a fight stat, like a pie chart here, that showed what did Murata do and what did Markos do. And in every stat, Murata just did better. She had ground control time of 8 minutes of the 15-minute fights. Murata even landed more total strikes, landed more significant strikes. I just did not understand what was Randa Markos's, what was her plan? Like, I don't get it. What was her plan? What was her win condition? I always say this for everything I do, for everything me and my friends, and whenever we do anything competitive, we always tell ourselves, okay, what's the win condition? As in, what's the thing I got to do in order to secure the victory? For Khabib, it's a takedown. Alright then. For Justin Gaethje, it's turning to a scrap fight. Alright. For Ashley Yoder, it was also a takedown. In this sense here, what the heck was Randa Markos' strategy? What was her win condition? Like, poke Murata and hope that Murata doesn't grapple her, even though she's a good grappler? I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. A good showing there by Kanako Murata, and I'm excited for her as, this really was a night full of prospects here, from Murata to Hanson to Corey Mckenna to an always developing Ashley Yoder. It was a night full of prospects, and also for the male side, we also had Kios Williams. Yes, there was a guy named Kios Williams who had an insane knockout victory. And so for UFC Fight Night, Dos Anjos versus Paul Felder, it was a night full of prospects, and a lot of fun stuff coming up in the UFC's Fight Division and the UFC Women's Strike Division. Actually, I found an article right here. It's coming in from CBC, saying here that Canada's Randa Markos ties UFC record in losing cause. Yikes. And so Canadian strawweight Randa Markos tied a UFC record in losing cause Saturday, beaten by Japan's Kanako Murata on a UFC Fight Night card. All three judges scored a unanimous decision victory, who used her wrestling skills to enter her UFC debut to control the 35-year-old fighter. The feature preliminary bouts, Murata, decorated wrestler, alright then, but oh my gosh, there's a record there? So, yikes. So right now, currently on the UFC's Twitter, you can go see Murata throwing in some huge ground and pound headshots in the end of the first round. Not looking well for Markos. So Markos, who was replacing the injured Lavinia, the Brazilian Gexter Souza, was coming off a September 19th submission loss to grappling ace Mackenzie Dern. Ironically enough, though, while I'm talking about prospects here, Randa Markos lost to both Dern and Amanda Rivas, two female fighters who I'm very high on. Early I'm high on them. But it says here, Randa Markos notches in 16 strawweight appearances. Good on her. Proper journeyman. But I'll say this right now, I really don't like it. I really don't like seeing fighters who are coming in for a paycheck and are not going out there for a victory. I hate it. I really do. We see this in fighters like Tyron Woodley, Hannah Cyphers, in that you got these fighters here who are coming in there with proper lose faces. It's proper, you know what? I'm not here to go and win the fights for my legacy, to have a strong performance. No. I'm only here because someone gave me a contract. I signed it. I'm just going to power my way through. That's about it. That really is pretty much it about Randa Markos. And to be honest with you, I do not want to see fighters like this. If Randa Markos, here's the thing. The Dana White Contender Series, every episode they're handing out new contracts. All right, new contracts are going out there. I absolutely would not be surprised, considering that right now, I think UFC, if they're smart, they should do this. In a sense, they really should import in more Asian fighters. For those of you who don't follow One Championships right now, specifically the Chinese fighters are doing absolutely awesome. They're still winning the competition. And when you look at somebody like Zhang Weili and Yan Xiaonan, who is at the cusp of competing amongst the top 5 of the women's strawweight division, I really would not be surprised if the UFC starts to bring in more Asian fighters or starts adding in more fighters from the Dana White Contender Series to make up the strawweight division, the female strawweight division. We already see it with Corey Mckenna. We already see it with Kay Hansen. Murata, she's coming in as a champion. Even though even though she sucked in her past 3 fights, Gina Frey, she comes in as a former Invicta FC champion. So there are a lot of women who are. I think I saw a report about 2.5 weeks ago, in that there really was an influx of female fighters whose contracts expired and whose contracts just weren't re-signed. So Randa Markos, how many fights are left in her contract, when it's done, I don't expect Randa Markos to come back to the UFC. And fighters like her are the type of fighters that I definitely do not want to watch. I just don't want to see it. And so now we move on to the news brief portion of the show here. So it is coming in by MMAJunkie.com here. So coming up this upcoming Saturday is going to be Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia. Huge title fight. Huge. So headline being Valentina Shevchenko for UFC 255, more special than others to make history with sister Valentina Shevchenko. So this article is being written in by Danny Seguro, UFC Women's Fight Champion Valentina Shevchenko. Next title defense will be something special for her in her career. She'll defend her title against Jennifer Maia on November 21st in the co-main event of UFC 255 in Las Vegas. This will be Shevchenko's 4th title defense and the first time she competes on the same UFC card as her sister, fellow flyweight Antonina. So Shevchenko is excited to make history as they'll become the first sisters to fight at the same UFC events. She goes on to say, this card is more special than others because for the first time in the history of the UFC, 2 sisters are going to fight on the same card. Shevchenko said in Spanish on Hablamos MMA, but it's not only sisters but also brothers. Yes, there has been in the UFC brothers that fight in different weight classes and different events, but on the same event and same weight class, there hasn't been. This would be the first time. Valentina last fought against Katlyn Chookagian. Shevchenko has fought before on the same card with Antonina, but in different sports. In different sports. The two fought many times together during their Muay Thai careers when they were younger. Shevchenko misses sharing an event with Antonina as she feels it's a much better function, logistically speaking. We always do the training camps together anyway, and we train together, helping each other out, Shevchenko explained. Now having this opportunity to fight on the same events, we're also going to have the same opportunity to rest together, and most importantly, our trainer, Master Pavel Fedotov, he is going to get more of a break because he's always training Antonina. She fights, and then she has to prepare me, and then I fight, and back to Antonina. So yeah, we always have a rest, but he's always working non-stop, so this will be better for him too. So Valentina's excited for this. Who is Antonina fighting in that card, though? Because the thing with Valentina Shevchenko is that, obviously, Oh man, she's fighting against Ariana Lipski. Dang, that is a tough fight. Yikes, that is a tough fight. But isn't like Ariana Lipski's like last couple showings were kind of underwhelming? Okay, so yeah. So there was a period of time where Ariana Lipski did go through a 2-fight losing streak. And that was against Joanne Calderwood and Molly McCann. But then she fought against two other fighters who... Yeah, she didn't fight against two other fighters that were much lower in the totem pole. But then Ariana Lipski pulled off a huge victory on Luana, Carolina, pulling off an insane knee bar back in Abu Dhabi. A knee bar so loud that Michael Bisping, upon looking at the replay, was like, alright then, go for the knee bar. And oh my goodness, yikes, that scream is right out of a horror movie. Oh man, this is a bad matchup for Antonina, man. It is. But yeah, the UFC, they've been trying really hard to push Antonina Shevchenko. But one thing that, when I said the UFC fight division, women's fight division, and strike division, they're really deep and full of a lot of prospects, and it's because, it's true, there are a lot of fighters who are outside the top 10 in both divisions that you can really see beat fighters who are already within the top 10. Like 6 through 10. Like, I think Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Rivas, they're ranked number 12 and number 13. But obviously they have the talent level to compete with the very best of the fight division, like 6 through 10. And for Antonina Shevchenko, she came in, I am so shocked they did this, where they had Antonina Shevchenko against Katlyn Chookagian. You had Antonina, who was an unranked fighter, outside the top 15, all of a sudden fighting against the second best fighter in the women's fight division. And in this scenario here, we have Antonina Shevchenko, who's proven to be, although a really good striker, her grappling ability is really lackluster. I'm pretty sure she's going to go to training camp working on her grappling and her wrestling ability. But Ariana Lipski, I don't think Antonina Shevchenko has enough time or any level of training that Antonina Shevchenko gets is good enough to handle the grappling ability of Ariana Lipski. I don't think so. Obviously, this is a battle between, the striker versus wrestler, and whenever it's a striker versus wrestler bout, I always gotta give the odds to the wrestler. So Antonina, I like to see Antonina win more often. But then again, I think Antonina Shevchenko recently has been given a series of fights that at face value she should win off the basis of rankings here, but it's way too tough. It really is. You know what? She defeated Lucy Paluva in a good showing, I guess so, but Katlyn Chookagian completely bodied her in their fights. Roxanne McDaffrey also bodied her.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. And so I'll be discussing Bellator, their recent event, Bellator 2v2. Had about one female fight in the entire night, and it was Emily King versus Carrie Taylor Melendez. And when watching this fight, I thought to myself, you can kind of tell who's gonna win the fight just 15 seconds in. You can kind of tell because immediately what Emily King did in this first 15 seconds of this fight pretty much summarizes this entire fight in a nutshell. We have Emily King, the submission specialist. She goes right at Carrie Taylor Melendez. Carrie Taylor Melendez, by the way, the wife of Gilbert Melendez. Great boxer, great grappler. So I'm guessing here Carrie Taylor Melendez here. She's got a great all-around game. She can handle herself in the stand-up and in the ground. Emily King here, primarily just a grappling expert here. And you can tell. Because Emily King is coming in, high kick, body kick, low kick, body kick, high kick. Little to few jabs, very little head movement. She kept throwing out side super kicks. If you've ever played UFC 2, 3, or 4, any of the UFC video games, and you're a dummy like me, you're going to start holding the L1 button and press X. Because if you hold L1 and X, or R1 and X, your character starts doing these like weird side high kicks. And usually when I do those, I'm hitting the air. And Emily King, the way how I viewed it, she felt like me trying to learn the controls for a UFC video game for the first time. And you knew that if you hold L1 and X, you do the coolest move. And that's what Emily King did. Other than her doing capoeira kicks and like spinning reverse roundhouse kicks and some stuff, doing Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff, like other than that, most of this fight was her just kicking the air. She was not connecting. Usually, the base as to why you do kicks in the first place is to go and play keep away. For the most part, you do leg kicks to go slow down your opponent and play keep away. If you got long legs, which Emily King does, I think what she was trying to go for was that she's trying to put a keep away fight and make Melendez come to her, be reckless, so Emily King can go push in for a takedown. But that's not what happened. Instead, we have Emily King here. She's like applying pressure on Melendez, but she's not landing any of the pressure, which meant that Melendez was in no danger at all. You keep doing leg kicks, body kicks. You do all these kicks to apply pressure on your opponent, so then your opponent can go make a mistake when they go for a counter strike. Instead, I tell you right now, Melendez had zero mistakes. Taylor Melendez fought perfectly. She landed every significant strike. Emily King goes in for a body kick. Melendez goes in for a right punch. This entire fight was Emily King goes for a kick. Emily King goes for a kick. She misses. Then Melendez gets in there and hits her with the right hand. And this happens over and over again for the better part of 2.5 straight minutes. 2.5 straight minutes of these perfectly accurate right counter punches. Then Emily King is like, okay, these kicks here aren't doing anything because she's either blocking them or I'm hitting the air and I have no confidence in my punching ability. So I'm just going to go in, shoot him for a takedown. I'm going to eat whatever shots Melendez is going to give to me. Alright then. So Emily King gets in there. She does this weird, if you've ever seen Ryan Hall versus BJ Penn, where like Ryan Hall just dives in there, he flips himself over, then goes for a heel hook. That's what Emily King did here. But then Melendez, being a person who's got proper jiu-jitsu training, recognizes this, being able to guard it, defend it, and then forces Emily King to get up. King gets up, gets back to that strategy of hitting the air with her kicks. Melendez gets in there, body punch. King gets stunned. King has her left arm holding her tummy. Melendez goes up, pressures King. King gets to the ground. Melendez gets on the back of King, gets a rear naked choke. Dominant performance there by Taylor Melendez. She's got a strong all-around game, and I am very surprised here. I'm very surprised how poor coaching was happening for Emily King, but I'm also very surprised at how deadly accurate Taylor Melendez is in her counterpunches and how she handled the takedown and the grappling. So overall, really good performance there by Taylor Melendez, and I expect really good things from her. Emily King, go to a new training camp. Go to a new training camp because with the way how this fight turned out, it was a disaster for her. A complete disaster for Emily King. Good job from Melendez, though. Good job on her. And so to end off today's podcast here, let's go through a quick round of the news brief here. First off here, we got Kilian Kagan against Cavillo likely for the UFC 255. With Murphy being kind of surprised, Lauren Murphy, because she felt like she deserves to fight against Cynthia Cavillo. And I can understand this, considering that Kilian Kagan just lost. Kagan just lost to Jessica Andrade, and now she'll be fighting against Cynthia Cavillo soon. And I'm just like, okay, why is Kagan fighting this early? We have Cynthia Cavillo out here, who's pretty much 1 win away to fighting against flyweight champion Valentin Shevchenko. And then we have Lauren Murphy, who's been at 1 win away for a while. So it would have made more sense for Lauren Murphy against Cynthia Calvillo happening at UFC 255. Katlyn Chookagian, her position this year, in the year 2020, in the fight division, has been very strange. It's like she was booked, for Valentin Shevchenko, lost, then fought against Anthony Shevchenko, this unranked fighter. It still bothers my mind that Anthony in the first place even had a spot to fight this far ahead in the division. But it was Anthony Shevchenko, Chookagian. Chookagian destroyed Antonina, then led to Chookagian versus Andrade. So Katlyn Chookagian fought against the world champion, then fought against two fighters who are unranked in the flight division. Meanwhile, Lauren Murphy's out there waiting. Cynthia Calvillo, unlike Anthony Shevchenko, was a fighter who pulled off the upset win in her respective bouts against Jessica Evil Eye. So now it's Chookagian versus Calvillo. Lauren Murphy feels like she's been left out. She's a little bit frustrated about this issue, and I understand. I really do. I understand the situation, and you know what? Sadly enough, the world of mixed martial arts, it's not really that, it's not... Rankings matter to an extent. Rankings matter in the sense that they are used as a reference guide, but that's all they are. They're just a reference guide. And then their fight will be coming up next week. I think it's way too early for Chookagian to be the trainer, considering that Lauren Murphy is perfectly available. The 37-year-old Lauren Murphy she's won her last 4 fights, but yet she's not given an opportunity compared to Chookagian, who just recently lost her last fight against an unranked fighter also. So Lauren Murphy goes on to say that I told Mick on Friday I would fight Cynthia Calvillo on December 12th. It was supposed to be a number contenders bout. Murphy wrote on Twitter. He sent a contract. I asked to sleep on it because there's some big stuff in it that's way over my head. Tried to call him this morning. Woke up from a nap today and saw this. Yikes. Huge yikes there. Also, to an extent, you kind of have to blame Lauren Murphy for this. Because you're asked for this fight, and the UFC does this. It's been like this for months since COVID happens, where you have no clue what's going on in upcoming fight events. This past Saturday, we've had 5 fights coming and going. Canceled fights, impromptu fights. It's been like this for months. And so, any opportunity that's being given, you've got to take it. But because things are going on so fast and so right now in the world of the UFC and the world of mixed martial arts, that every opportunity that comes in, you just got to take it. Don't even think about it. So, Lauren Murphy, yeah, I understand why you're frustrated. But, and it's understandable why it's frustrating. The company is not stable. It's not consistent. It feels like every single week something isn't happening. I'm covering this. All right, I'm covering this news, and it feels like every day there's contradicting news out there. Like, this fighter wants to fight against this person, but it turns out they're not really fighting, and there's a contract for this other fighter. Ugh. It's frustrating. There it is. So, we have another veteran here who is set to go continue her winning ways, and that is Michelle Watterson against Amanda Rivas. So their fight has been proposed for UFC 257. And this fight here, wow, this is a huge fight for both fighters. Amanda Rivas, I've been saying it for the longest time, is a prospect who, by the end of next year, easily top 10. Easily. Michelle Watterson is one of those fighters who has the skill set to maintain her position amongst the top 10. She's in terms of where her placement is right now in her career, she's in the same boat as Carla Esparza and Claudia Cadella. But Michelle Watterson, unlike those two fighters, just won the recent bouts. No, Carla Esparza won her recent bouts. But like Carla Esparza, like I don't know what's up with her, but she can never like get her way ever. She just can't. So Michelle Watterson, she's in a better place than Claudia Cadella. I think she's in a better place than Carla Esparza here. And she had a really good showing against Angela Hill, which I thought was the best fight of the night for that event when it took place. So Watterson versus Amanda Rivas here. If Amanda Rivas wins this, she's maybe one fight, because I think Michelle Watterson, she's outside the top 10. So Rivas beats Watterson, which is my prediction here. I think Amanda Rivas will beat Michelle Watterson. Then Michelle Watterson will pretty much be in the same place. She's in good graces right now with the UFC, considering the fact that she also works as a commentator and analyst for the UFC. And also, I think she recently signed like a contract for many years. So Michelle Watterson, she will stay her place outside the top 10. Amanda Rivas, I have high hopes for her, and I expect great things from Amanda Rivas coming in, which I think will be a very fun fight. I think it's gonna go by unanimous decision victory for Amanda Rivas, but it's gonna be a tough decision victory for Rivas as she goes and defeats Michelle Watterson. But that's a really fun matchup, and hopefully it does happen for UFC 257. We have Kayla Harrison to go fight at Invicta UFC, at Invicta 43. She's the current PFL lightweight champion. Awesome for her. She's one of those fighters that is one of the best fighters in the world, who you might not... She's one of the best fighters in the entire world. Men or women. She really is. And I expect great things from her, and I expect her to become a future champion for Invicta 43. I expect her to not win the title at Invicta 43. She could potentially be a champion her first night. It can definitely happen. Where Kayla Harrison's like, you know what? I'm the current champion for PFL. Throw me a title fight immediately. Champion versus champion. Let's book it. That's a real possibility. We also have Maycee Barber fighting against Alexa Grasso. Their fight is on tap for a February UFC Fight Night event. Woo, wow. Alexa Grasso, I think she was in a streak and then she lost recently. And Maycee Barber, I think, won her last recent fights. I think about that, but their fight will be coming up February. They're both they're in the same boat as Watterson in the sense that they're just outside the top 10. Like 1 or 2 fights is going to get them fighting against somebody who's ranked number 6 or 7 in the division. So, yeah, here. I was super high on Alexa Grasso at one point. I was. But since then, I'm kind of like on her. Maycee Barber did lose to Roxanne Modafferi in a huge upset loss. I thought Roxanne Modafferi was going to lose that fight. And it's the reason why Roxanne Modafferi is as high as she is, contrary to what her record is in the fight division, which is very strange. I think Roxanne Modafferi was at one point top 5 ranked, but her UFC record ain't all that bueno. So Alexa Grasso, she is currently 3-3 in her run as a strawweight for in the UFC. She made her debut fighting against Jeon Kim. She won by unanimous decision. But these two fighters desperately need to win here. Maycee Barber should win this fight here, but I'm still high on Alexa Grasso here. So, also, consider that Maycee Barber just lost to Roxanne Modafferi, who, by the way, I love Roxanne Modafferi, but she's not, I would say, a top-tier elite fighter in the flyweight division. I think the flyweight division is very, very deep, and she's just high-ranked for reasons that she just beats some... Okay, Roxanne Modafferi, she can beat some fighters. Like, she is fully capable of beating the elite fighters, but she can't really win gimme fights. Roxanne Modafferi is a kind of a strange anomaly in mixed martial arts here, where she is very beatable, but don't be surprised if she beats one of the top fighters in the division. So Barber and Alexa Grasso, their fight is on tap for February 13, and that's going to be a very even close fight here. I'm not really sure who's going to win this one. I'll put my money right now on Grasso. Yeah, even though Barber will probably be the favorite going to this fight here, I'm going to put my money on Alexa Grasso. And that will bring us to a close for today's podcast. You have been a great audience. All I got to say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.